Let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
Here's why the presidential focus, the 2028 focus, I think is bad, is because if you wake up asking yourself, what's good for my future a few years down the road, you're not going to do a good job right now.
And that is J.D. Vance speculating on running for president. And he says, I'm not going to even think about it until after the midterm elections, and I'm going to sit down with the president first. Not too soon to talk about 28. It reveals the game plan that J.D. is going to put in place. Who else will be on that debate stage, if anyone? And what about on the left? We'll talk to Griff about that.
Number 2.
The socialist fever in the Democratic Party seems to be spreading after Zohran Mamdani's win in New York City. Over in Seattle, they have just elected a socialist mayor, Katie Wilson, an inexperienced far-left radical who got financial support from her parents.
Kayleigh McEnany, aftermath of the shutdown, has revealed a political bloodbath on the left, and the rise of socialism cannot be denied. Let the nonviolent civil war begin.
Number 1.
We are doing phenomenally well. This is the greatest economy we've ever had. Their talking points, oh, costs are high. By the way, the only thing is beef. We're going to take care of all this stuff very quickly, very easily. It's surgical. It's beautiful to watch.
But they are. It is more than beef, but he's attacking all these items, including coffee. They get it. A week removed from a terrible off-year election, the Republicans show, the administration reveals, they know affordability matters. It's a key to winning the midterms. We'll review their plans and answers, and it isn't shoveling free money to people. And that's, by the way, I know the president loves the idea of giving some tariff money to people. I don't. I know the Secretary of Treasury told me on Wednesday, that he says, I'll just we're thinking about $2,000 of tariff money to people at a certain income, so not everybody. Griff Jenkins joins us now. Griff, I can't believe how many practical measures they're speculating, they're putting in place and thinking about putting in place that it legitimately can affect people's lives.
Yeah, and listen, we talked a little bit about this on Fox and Friends this morning, and I'm going to say it again here. I really think that one of the things that has so distinguished President Trump were the giant rallies was the fact that he was constantly out in America where people are actually impacted, not in New York City, not in Washington, D.C., but in towns across the country talking about the issues that matter. And for guys like you and I, Brian, we were in our early 30s when we bought our first home and barely could do it and scrambling to figure out how to make it happen. And then by now, we've gotten older and, that's been a benefit to us. And any really person back in the, 80s and 90s were able to buy that house. That doesn't exist now for the young 25, 30-year-olds.
One of the reasons was a little bit in the 90s about the bad loans. Yeah. Hey, you don't have the income eligibility yet, so we'll give you an adjustable loan. You don't have to put as much money down, and it all blew up. And then they would give you the mortgage and then sell it to another bank. And then when everything fell apart, you'd find out you couldn't even find the loans. Like what bank actually had your loan?
Right, you didn't know who to pay.
Yeah, no, thinking in retrospect, sometimes we got those mortgages and we shouldn't have. Right. So now we've really buckled down, and people are saying, wait a second, no one's selling their homes in their 40s and 50s because the interest rate was so great. Yeah. Now it's at 6, it was at 3. So that's why I love the idea we discussed yesterday about portability. Take your 3%, 3.5% mortgage to that bigger house. I don't know how the banks liked it, but if the president met with all those banking CEOs the night before, don't you think he came up with Jamie Dimon and company?
Oh, you bet it did. And again, owning your home is the cornerstone of the American dream as we talk about it. I've given President Trump the name for his nationwide tour should be bringing the American dream back and talk about the affordability. I'll tell you another thing that was mentioned that would make a lot of sense, and that is right now you cannot take out more than $10,000 out of your 401k. But if you are someone that have been trying to buy
without
a house,
penalty, right?
Without a penalty, and who wants to pay, 40% cap gains tax on taking money out of your 401k. It just makes no sense. It's financially a terrible idea. But if you could increase that to say 30, maybe 40,000 that you could take out of your 401k, there are, I think, probably in this country, and I'd love to know the number, a large number of 35, 36, 37-year-olds that have since gotten married, that probably even have their first or even second child that have been deferred because of the conditions during the Biden administration. They couldn't buy a house, they're paying rent. That could help them right now. It could help them tomorrow to change the trajectory of their household's economy.
So here's E.J. Antoni. He's writing for The Economist. This is what he said Gen Z is facing now, where I think the number is 3% of Gen Zers have their own home. Wow, cut 5.
And I think if we look at, for example, the financial habits of Gen Z, and we compare that to millennials, Gen Z is actually much more conservative financially speaking, and yet the affordability for them is terrible when it comes to something like buying a home. So while you might find individuals in literally every generation who are not financially very responsible, right? I don't think we can paint a broad brush with Gen Z and say that somehow it's their fault. I think this is a systematic failure.
System and just the situation you find yourselves in right now. There's very few houses for sale proportionally in the country. So if you have a short supply, obviously the homeowner wants to get maximum for their house. People are paying over the price everywhere on Long Island that I know. Yeah. Part of it is people want to move out of the city, and everybody wants to go outside New York City. Or if you're listening in Chicago or Philadelphia, of course you want to be in the suburbs if you can.
Well, and it's a supply and demand thing, and you're right. I mean, as Mayor Mamdani comes in, you may see even more people want to get out of New York City for the obvious reasons. But what's interesting is that in the interview with Sean, Vice President Vance was talking about the fact that you can't forget we've got 10 million plus illegal aliens across the border. Many of them were given opportunities in this country. And you know what they did? They're smart. They're conservative. They bought a house. And so the supply was even impacted by the border crisis. I know those on the left have really downplayed that, but that's an actual factor. And so you look at the big picture, you got a supply and demand problem. You've got people that shouldn't have been here in the first place that got these homes.
So here's what President Trump told Laura this week on this. Cut 1.
This is the greatest economy we've ever had. Their talking points, costs are high, costs are high. By the way, the only thing is beef.
Coffee
is a little high because the ranchers are doing great. Coffee, we're going to lower some tariffs. We're going to have some coffee come in. We're going to take care of all this stuff very quickly, very easily. It's surgical. It's beautiful to watch. But our costs are way lower.
So that's what the Treasury Secretary said. He said, we're going to look to lower tariffs on Guatemala, El Salvador, Ecuador, Argentina. He's back and forth on Brazil because of the political situation there. But all those countries have items that we want here, but the tariffs are jacking up the price. They're putting it on the consumer. Some companies didn't, but these countries are, and I guess the grocery stores are reflecting that. But is this on some level showing the president and the Treasury Secretary giving in and kind of acknowledging that tariffs do up the price on the consumer?
Well, to a certain extent, but on the flip side, Brian, I think it's also the fact that this administration, President Trump, Vance, Bessent, others, are realizing, hey, Mamdani won because he's out there talking about affordability and people wanted to hear it. The administration has got to do a better job in messaging about the things that have gone down because of the inflation under the Biden years that has extended. But look, at the end of the day, they're saying, hey, eggs, gas, energy, those are going down. We'll see what happens with the coffee tariff. I mean, by the way, can we just be honest? When I hear about, high prices of coffee, like I have no idea how a tariff is or isn't going to impact the fact that I'm going to buy a PSL pumpkin spice latte at Starbucks, and that just keeps getting more and more expensive.
Can I just say this? Since when do you abbreviate pumpkin spice latte?
PSL, yeah.
Really?
You just walk into Starbucks, like, hey, PSL, grande.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, put it this way. I got this thing where I ordered a pecan latte. I don't think pecans were seasonal. So I show up, I did it on the app, which I rarely do, and I see my cup there, and it's empty. So what do you think that means? What would that mean to you?
That they don't have pecans.
You would know that right away?
Well, I would think so.
So I'm just saying to myself, I'm going to wait it. I'm waiting it out. I wait another 10 minutes before I go, excuse me, are you going to put anything in this cup? And they go, oh, yeah, you're the guy. We don't make that anymore. I go, why is it on
You're
the
the
app?
guy.
Yeah, you're the guy?
That guy.
Yeah, we can't make that. So you just leave it empty? I mean, you can't just can someone even acknowledge that I've been here? Because they put your name on the board now.
Yeah.
They put your name, we're working on it, we're done with it. My name's on, we're working on it. I feel bad for the other people because it seems like I'm the only one they're working on. I get no production.
Just give the pecan guy an oat milk vanilla. He won't know the difference.
Right. But I just understand why some places decide to season things out and others don't.
Well, I think, Starbucks really is the reason why we started doing it, because everybody was like, October, here we go, the pumpkin. And then they wanted to branch it out to different.
All right, a couple other things. I want to talk about 2028. So I thought that J.D. Vance, the one thing the president does not want, I know he's never experienced this before. He's been the number one guy. But after the midterms, we're going to be talking about 2028. And that president that's term limited out often doesn't get the spotlight. J.D. Vance, so smart. This is what he says his strategy is going to be when it comes to politics. And he's not going to focus on anything yet. Cut 15.
Here's why the presidential focus, the 2028 focus, I think is bad, is because if you wake up in my job or anybody else's job asking yourself, what's good for my future a few years down the road, you're not going to do a good job right now. The question that I try to ask myself is, what is good for the president, the administration, and the American people right now? That's what I have to be focused on. And I think so long as I do that, again, politics will take care of itself.
So he says he's going to meet with the president after 2028 and say, these are my plans. How do we work together? And that's the key. But you know the president, the last thing he wants is to be old news. And the last thing he wants is not be a part of this process. And if he could say, that's my guy, he's checking with me all the time. The other thing is, J.D. Vance plays a valuable role in that administration. He really does. And the president wants him in on everything. So if he's all of a sudden out campaigning, that's a loss to the administration. And especially I could see the president getting frustrated with that if he doesn't do it the right way. And you don't want him going, maybe J.D. isn't the right choice.
Yeah, what a great contrast,
you're J.D. Vance.
By the way, talking about Vance's importance to the administration, the contrast between Vance and Kamala Harris, the border czar, given thankless tasks that were never going to succeed, and you had
But I don't think the border czar is thankless, do you? That was an opportunity. If you're the vice president, you welcome the opportunity to get a signature issue.
But they didn't let her do anything on the border because Mayorkas was given the direct orders from the White House to basically open the damn thing up. And they said, we'll send you down to the Northern Triangle, to Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and you can talk about root causes. She was destined to fail. But compare that
So you think that's the scenario? You think that she was going to do something, that Mayorkas had more control and she didn't, then she decided differently?
There have been a number of nuggets of reporting coming out that Harris was pretty open about feeling undermined and complaining about the way the Oval Office and the White House staff were not supporting her and setting her up for success, rather setting her up directly for failure. But there's been a number of nuggets reporting that really Mayorkas had way more control than Harris, and that's why she was trying to distance herself from the border czar title to begin with, because she knew she wasn't given.
If that is the case, I give her a little bit more credit now. I thought she just was a no-show, didn't want the job. She says it's like you said, thankless. And Mayorkas, by the way, if you're the border czar, you look at Tom Homan, how much power he has. Yeah. If you're the vice president of border czar, you come in there and tell Mayorkas, this is the back of my baseball card. What are you doing? What's going on? Why you look at these? Look at the NGOs. This thing is overflowing. Look at the flood of people under that bridge.
Right.
You're making me look terrible. But that's what I would do, because Joe Biden's clearly not working more than 4 hours a day. This is what I'm going to get judged on this. I'm going to sit down with 60 Minutes and have to justify this. Forget it.
I got to tell you, Brian, in the wake of President Trump coming in without a Senate immigration bill, by the way, which is what all the Democrats in previous administrations said, we needed to shut the border down. Can't do. President Biden said, I can't do anything more. It's got to be Congress. Wasn't the case. Obviously, we saw the president shut the border down. We've had 6 straight months of 0 releases in the country when it was hundreds of thousands every month under the Biden administration. But the number one comment when people see me in the airport and stop me is they say, hey, I appreciate, love the weekends now. Congratulations. But by the way, you're reporting at the border. I got to ask you, was it intentional? And it is hard to come up with and I don't know, but it's hard to come up with any other conclusion than in some ways
yes.
it was intentional, because we now know they literally could have done it with executive order.
And it all goes back to what did Biden know? Because as a senator, he wasn't pro-open borders.
No.
And he didn't get elected to open up the border. Whose idea was that? Griff, thanks so much. Who's coming on this weekend?
We got, speaking of the border, we've got Border Patrol Chief Mike Banks. He hadn't been out there much. He's going to be out there now, and we're about to see, CBP heading to Charlotte, North Carolina. We've got Laura Trump. We've got Kayleigh McEnany, and we've got biohacker Brian Johnson. That's going to be interesting.
Oh, yeah. He's trying to make us all live longer. Griff Jenkins, great job today. We'll be watching all 8 hours over the weekend.
Thanks, Brian.
Don't move. So with me in studio, we never get a chance to see him in studio, Tom Dupree, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General. And by the way, Tom, you're one of these guys on every channel. So you are like a free agent. So you'll be used on any topic on any channel that has a legal angle. Why is that important to you?
Well, there's a lot in the news. From my perspective, what's really interesting is that so many of these legal and constitutional issues that I've literally spent my life and career studying and thinking about are now kind of at center stage in just our nation's political debate concerning what the president's powers are, how far the president can go, consistent with the laws and the Constitution, what Congress's role is, what the proper role of the federal courts is. So all of these things that I've studied and litigated and advised on over the years have now really come to center stage and are in the spotlight in our nation's debate.
What were you you were on a lot when they were going after the president for about 2.5 years, from the Georgia case to everything that Jack Smith was pulling forward, to what we saw in New York City resulting in his conviction. When you were seeing these legal cases come together, what portion of that felt to you like political targeting, and what portion of that felt like just justice?
Yeah, let's see. A lot of it felt like political targeting, candidly. The one that
especially the New York, right?
I was going to say, as we know, Tish James, somewhat infamously during the campaign, basically said, elect me because I'm going to get Trump.
Isn't that dumb?
Well,
or is that typical? I never remember someone running to go against a guy that didn't do anything.
That's the thing. Look, she obviously was trying to excite her base. She was obviously trying to get elected. There are a lot of people in her political base who like that sort of thing, saying, run for office. I'm running for office. Elect me because I'm going to put the guy that we don't like in jail. Totally inappropriate, 100% inappropriate for a law enforcement official to campaign for office on that basis. So, yeah, when I look at what the prosecutions that went forward, certainly I would put the Tish James one at the top of the list.
So it looks like we have another mortgage case. We have a mortgage case with Adam Schiff saying primary residence, rental of property, Letitia James, and we have a one with now Eric Swalwell on mortgages. First off, on the Letitia James case, we had her future opponent, the Republican, on and said she doesn't deny it, that she wrote that as a primary residence, does a deal with her dad, said it was her spouse, but she thinks it's targeting prosecution. What do you think?
I think that there is a very strong case that she did violate the law when she filled out these mortgage forms. As you point out, she hasn't exactly denied that she filled out the forms in these way. Her lawyer haven't exactly denied that she did what she's alleged to have done. I think the challenge here for the prosecutors is really persuading the judge and maybe ultimately a jury that this was a case worth bringing given the size and scope of what was at issue. Look, the Justice Department prosecutes mortgage frauds a lot. So to say that, this is not something that would ever be prosecuted, that's not true. But what is true is that the scope of this is different. It's smaller than what the Justice Department typically prosecutes when it brings these types of mortgage fraud cases.
What about the rule she passed that she could use taxpayer funds to defend herself?
That I don't quite get. In other words, I get that it can be appropriate for.
Well, Cuomo used it, right?
Well, sure. And look, I think the issue here is that it's appropriate, or it can be appropriate, for elected officials to use public funds to defend themselves if they are accused of doing something wrong in their course of their official duties, right? In other words, public officials get sued all the time, and we don't make, governors pay out of their own pocket to defend themselves if they're alleged to have done something wrong, again, in the course of their official duties. But I'm a little hard-pressed to see how what is alleged here falls in the scope of her official duties, right? If we're talking about the mortgage fraud case, that was not something that she did as part of her role as Attorney General of New York. That was something she just did as a private citizen. And a private citizen couldn't draw on government resources to fund their defense. So there, it's a little hard for me to see how that
So
squares.
what do you do? Do you challenge that if you're the government? do you say, who's paying this? Who's paying your bill?
Well, sure. You could do a few things. I mean, the first thing is that, the legislature could take an interest in this. I mean, if she's trying to actually, get some sort of law or regulation or policy enacted that would fund her defense, that's something that the legislature presumably could look at and override.
Too,
right. So that's typically how you would do it. I don't see the prosecutors necessarily looking into that because it's a little kind of off base from what they would be charging.
From what you know about the Adam Schiff case, what do you hear? The same thing with the mortgage, saying something's your primary residence and it's not.
Exactly. I mean, look, the fact is when anytime you apply for a mortgage, you have to make all sorts of statements and assertions that you sign really under penalty of law. In other words, if you check the wrong box, arguably that could be a federal crime. I think in a lot of these mortgage cases, the challenge is number one, proving that it was an intentional deception or fraudulent act as opposed to just something inadvertent, right? We all fill out many forms all day, and if we just happen to check the wrong box on a form, God forbid that leads to a federal prosecution. The prosecutors would typically have to show motive and intent to defraud as opposed to an inadvertent mistake.
Right.
So that may be what some of these cases end up turning on.
Eric Swalwell, yesterday, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it yet.
I haven't seen the evidence that they have underlying it. My understanding is that it's along similar lines. In other words, it's a mortgage fraud case, and they're basically saying that he made false representations in connection with obtaining the mortgage. That's my understanding.
What do they have in common? They've all targeted the president verbally or politically over the last 6 years, which doesn't look great, but as a human being, I thoroughly understand it.
Well, look, I agree on both fronts. I agree it doesn't look great, and I think that is going to be a challenge for the prosecutors in these cases because judges read the papers, juries read the papers, they follow TV, radio. They will know the backstory here, and so I think the prosecutors may have a slightly more uphill battle than they would in the ordinary course because there very well could be some jurors who come to this case and say, is this a politically motivated prosecution?
Yesterday, the Letitia James case, and I believe the case against Tomi was in court because they wanted to prove that Lindsay Halligan should not be allowed to bring this case forward. Meaning, if the wrong person brings the case, they shouldn't have a case. Who made the stronger case yesterday?
Let's see.
From what we know.
Yeah. So from what we know, I think that these arguments challenging Halligan's appointment, I think actually probably have more legs than some of the other arguments that we've seen coming from the defense. The defense in both of these cases have basically thrown the kitchen sink out there, right? They have attacked these indictments on multiple fronts. I tend to think that the challenges to Halligan's appointment kind of in the spectrum of things probably are on the stronger side of the arguments that we've seen. Because there is a decent argument that you can't kind of successively appoint these interim prosecutors like
Alina Habba?
Done. So, yeah, exactly. And that's what we've seen in other cases. I mean, other federal judges have looked at similar types of things and said you can't do this. And I think for a judge, frankly, dismissing a case on that basis would be a far easier lift than dismissing it on the grounds that, Trump was vindictive and hated Comey or what sort of that sort of thing.
They're also doing that, though, right?
That's right. And that's why I'm saying that I think if you're a judge and you want to throw the case out, it would be easier to do it on the basis of an invalid appointment rather than getting into this whole business of whether Trump was being vindictive. I don't think a judge is going to want to go there.
And if you don't, it's okay because there's so many cases going, but do you know anything about the judge?
Yes. Yeah. So the judge who's deciding this was brought in from another district. She's a senior judge. I believe she was a Clinton appointee, served for a while. And look, I think she is going to call it, as she sees it. My read of the situation is that, even conservative judges who look at the law say there are limits on how often you can do these sorts of interim appointments. So, if she ultimately says this appointment was invalid, I guess I wouldn't necessarily read that as kind of a political cram down or view. I think they're reasonable arguments.
Well, the cases are over then.
So the cases would be over if
unless they want to bring it up again.
Well, I guess a couple things. One, yes, the cases would be over, assuming that we're talking about where Lindsay Halligan was the only one who signed the indictment. Yes. But can they bring it up again? Well, maybe, although in the Comey case, it's not entirely clear because you'll remember they charged Comey. Yeah, it was like the day before the statute of limitations ran. So they could have an issue with recharging Comey.
See, I always thought with the Comey case, they're going to build it. So they had the one thing where he maybe used Ted Cruz and said the wrong thing to Ted Cruz. Okay. But I sense that they're still researching that case. And I found that there was a document that indicated that was hidden away that this current FBI director was able to find that James Comey knew very well, that they were going to trump up a case against Trump with the Russia hoax, and he knew all about it. And so there's more information that could come forward. Am I right saying that you could charge someone one thing and then add to that charge as you have more discovery, or no?
Well, it depends. You certainly could add more evidence that you didn't have in the original indictment. There's no question about that. It would be harder to bring brand new charges if you've got a statute of limitations problem.
Oh, okay.
So you couldn't do that. But the evidence could come in, right? And look, and that was one of the things that jumped out to a lot of us when we saw the Comey indictment, was that it was fairly bare bones. I mean, we've seen indictments that, are 40 pages and tell a long story.
This was 3 pages.
This was the opposite. Yeah, it's like the Cliff's Notes version, right, of an indictment.
So here's the biggest story. Actually, before I get to the biggest story, what happened in Chicago when that judge ruled that now, because they didn't like the way the illegal immigrants were picked up, scooped up, and jailed or detained, they now have to let out 600 in Chicago. Now, what I can't see in any of these stories is now they're staying it for now until the third week in November, just to give people some time. And, it just goes to reason that some of these people are legitimate criminals. Maybe some of them have just overstayed their visas. But how could one judge decide this? Why wouldn't they appeal the process?
Well, I suspect they will appeal the process, right? What's going on in Chicago right now is we have a situation where a district judge is exercising very close, and many would say excessive, supervision over an actual ICE removal operation. And the point about just releasing people en masse, absolutely. I mean, it does suggest that maybe this has kind of gone too far.
You expect an appeal on this?
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know where the appeal is. This is an emergency.
So, well, if you're talking about the cases that are being litigated in federal court in Chicago, the appeal there would run up to the federal appellate circuit, the Seventh Circuit that oversees Illinois and other states. Then it would potentially run up to the United States Supreme Court. So that's the appeal chain.
We have never seen anything like this at the Supreme Court.
We've never seen anything like this. And look, I promise you, the Supreme Court is not looking to get involved in ICE removal operations either. This is not why they have their jobs. And I think it's the sort of thing where I suspect that the appellate court, as we saw, you may remember in the Ninth Circuit, where the Oregon judge was issuing similarly aggressive rulings, and then the Ninth Circuit came in and said this is going a little too far. We could see the same dynamic playing out in the Chicago situation too.
So we know about the tariff. Last week, the big story was the tariff negotiations. How is it constitutionally? Is it constitutional for the president to use tariffs the way he's using them? And the president's argument was the reason why he's using tariffs, which he says maybe technically might be something that Congress would approve, would be. What was his argument?
Well, the president's argument is that he has the power under this statute that has a kind of a funny acronym called IEPA, and it basically gives the president the power in emergency situations to regulate importations and the like. But the courts have never really defined how far the president's power extends under this law. I mean, the law has been on the books for decades. No president has used it as powerfully and as aggressively as President Trump has. So we're in a bit of uncharted legal territory. But the president's argument is basically that Congress has given him the power to impose these tariffs in emergency situations. And that's what the Supreme Court is deciding, whether or not the president's power extends as far to justify the tariffs that he imposed.
And the plaintiffs, multiple states, including individuals, that said they don't have this power. Congress has the power to tax, and tariffs are a tax.
That's right. This was challenged by coalitions of two plaintiffs. One were a group of small businesses that got hit by the tariffs, American businesses that got hit by the tariffs. The other was a group of states. It was led by the state of Oregon that also challenged the tariffs. Right. The Supreme Court heard both arguments together. And look, they're going to decide this case in a very, I suspect, important, long-lasting way, because what the Supreme Court says here is going to govern how all future American presidents can wield this tariff power if they in fact possess it.
And what about the tariffs that are already in place? How do you land that plane? How do you undo time?
Well,
so here's and you tell me what this means to you. So we were able to listen to the audio of the Supreme Court. And this is the moment where there's a lot of different interpretations, but here's Amy Coney Barrett asking the plaintiffs, what happens if these tariffs are proved to be unconstitutional? Listen.
If you win, tell me how the reimbursement process would work. Would it be a complete mess? I mean, you're saying before the government promised reimbursement, and now you're saying, well, that's rich, but how would this work? It seems to me like it could be a mess.
So she's worried. She's asking a question. I'm not just going to rule. I'm in this world. my ruling is going to have a big time effect. And I can't just say the law is the law. So isn't that similar to what John Roberts was thinking with the overturning of Obamacare? He tried to land the plane and basically redefine what Obamacare was.
That's a fascinating analogy, and I think it's spot on. What was particularly fascinating to me about Justice Barrett's question is, and it goes to your point, that we often think the Supreme Court's job is just to figure out what the law is and apply it full stop. But here she was asking about the practical consequences of a ruling, meaning if we were to invalidate these tariffs, what happens? Is it going to be chaos? Are there going to be refunds? Can you put the toothpaste back in the tube?
And what did he admit? He admitted, I don't know.
Well,
it's going to be chaos. It's going to be a mess.
It would be a challenge, certainly, to try to kind of process refunds just on an unbelievably massive scale to give tariff money back to people who paid it. But what it suggests to me is that Justice Barrett, when the court sits down to actually deliberate and figure out how they're going to decide this case, may be looking for a practical resolution to this case, along the lines of what the Chief Justice did in the Obamacare case. So could there be a world where the court says something like, we are going to invalidate these tariffs going forward, but we're not going to try to undo what's already happened?
Do you expect it?
You know, I've always thought that the Supreme Court's likeliest outcome here might be to split the difference, in the sense that I could see them upholding the narrow tariffs, but maybe striking down broader tariffs. Right. That would be one possible way they could go. The other thing they could do is they could just strike down all of these tariffs, but underscore that by striking down these tariffs, they are not barring the president from imposing tariffs under other authorities he has. All they are deciding is whether he has the power to impose these tariffs under this particular statute he invoked, but he has other tariff powers.
When do you expect the decision to come?
I think we're going to get it in the next few months. Normally, I would say end of June, but they put this case on a fast, expedited schedule, so I think they're going to speak sooner rather than later.
Tom Dupree, you handle it all. That's why you should do this law thing full time. Former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Tom Dupree, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Back in a moment. Hey, we're back, and it's our privilege to have in studio a guy that's pretty busy, and he found some time to come to New York and be here. So if you're watching the stream on Fox Nation, go ahead and pop it in. Congressman Tom Emmer's here. He's the House Majority Whip, and what a job he has. I mean, when you talk about a slim majority, there's almost no margin for error. And that's what's on his plate on a daily basis out of Minnesota. Congressman, I was going to apologize for how cold it was here this week in New York, but you don't care. This is like tank top weather for you.
It's beautiful. I walked over here. It's awesome.
Right. Yeah, which is good. I mean, a little bit earlier. But are you used to it? I mean, is Minnesota as cold as they say?
Well, for me, it hasn't been. We've had 2 wimpy winters in a row. But yes, we'll have a stretch in the past few years, with the exception of the last 2, where you get to, I remember, it was raining on Christmas Day. This is within the last 5 years. And for the next 6 to 8 weeks, the temperature was somewhere around 20 below. I mean, it just stayed there, right? And everybody's thinking, oh, it's global warming. We're not going to have this. And then boom, it's so cold that your tires will freeze where they sit. So when you start driving the next morning, it'll be a little bit of the thump until it warms up. And
wow. I mean, that's incredible. I remember during the Super Bowl that you guys hosted, they would tell our reporters, you cannot take off your gloves, whatever you do. No. So, and you got to cover your face or whatever. But you guys are tough by nature. So it's great to see you. Did anything surprise you about the final tally? I talked to you in the morning before the final vote on the CR that you got back from the Senate. Tom Massey didn't vote for it, but you lost Greg Steube, too.
Well, and I never had a chance to talk to Greg. We tried, but Greg was part of a larger group that we ran into a problem that we didn't expect. And you may not be surprised to know that the Senate snuck a provision in when they did it, at the night they did it, they put in a provision which on its face made sense to clarify a certain Senate statute that applies to senators when you are taking records or getting a subpoena. There's a statute that, as I understand it, says the senators are supposed to be notified. And as we know, Jack Smith, in his Arctic Frost investigation, I think it's 8 senators went and got their phone records without their knowledge.
We just found out Kevin McCarthy, too.
Okay, well, the House doesn't have these protections because it was also Mike Kelly. But there is a statute that actually is supposed to protect senators from the standpoint they're supposed to get notice even when there's a subpoena. Well, they clarified that statute because apparently it wasn't clear if it applies to cell phones, other things. So they did that. But then, Brian, they put a private cause of action in it and said damages not less than $500,000 per occurrence. We almost had a complete jailbreak over that. Our guys were so frustrated by that because one, it looks bad. Two, I'm not sure why they think they're going to get $500,000 or more for this. But think about this. The frustration in the House, which is kind of a lunch pail, blue-collar institution compared to the silk stockings in the Senate, Jack Smith didn't just go after members of Congress. He was serving subpoenas on American citizens and American organizations outside of Congress. Why is it that people in elected office are entitled to greater protection than people that he was attacking
Bad
outside?
Message and an unnecessary message.
And we're going to fix it. But that, I think...
that's how you lost him.
Right.
So it did pass. You got a few Democrats to cross over. Tom Massey just on another planet. He's got a personal problem with the President of the United States. So we'll see what happens, where we go from here. People keep saying, well, didn't you just postpone the next shutdown that's going to happen January 30th? And I thought one way to solve that would be to get your appropriations bills done. Get everything done ahead of time. You don't have anything to negotiate, right?
That is exactly right. And people, it's mostly the media. And God bless you, Brian Kilmeade, for recognizing that this is about getting back to a regular order appropriations process. It's not about, we're going to report. You just have the next shutdown on January 30th. No. What we were doing in September was getting back to this regular order appropriations. There were 3 bills, and now you've seen them because they came across with the same CR that we had sent them on the 19th, with the exception of that January date now. Yeah. Those 3 bills, they were ready to close them back in September. I'm told there's another 6, up to 6 right now that are that close.
On the House side to get to the Senate, or the
House
Senate?
And the Senate.
Okay.
The House passed all 12 out of our Appropriations Committee. We passed a handful off the House floor. But you'll remember, it's probably old news now, at the beginning of September, both the House and the Senate made motions on their respective floors to go to conference on those first 3. So these the communications between Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate have been going on since September, Brian. We get those. The appropriations chair in the House, Tom Cole from Oklahoma, who, you can set your watch to Tom. He believes that he can get 10 of the 12 done in short order, and it'll come down to, for instance, the defense appropriations bill and the labor housing bill.
So let me ask you, do the Democrats, I know for the longest time when you guys were in the minority, you felt like you had no voice in those committees. Do Democrats do they speak up? Do you guys work together when they're in committee, or do they have a role?
If you are a reasonable left of center Democrat who wants to govern, and there are some, right? You had 6 that crossed over to open the government in the House the other night.
Tom Suozzi, Jared Golden.
Yeah, you got people who want to do that kind of work, and there's more than that, by the way. There are just others that feared their violent left, I think, more than these guys. Yes, people work together, believe it or not, to get these things out of committee, to get them across the House floor. And now that they're doing conferences, that formal conference committee, Brian, I was told that hadn't happened since 2019.
How crazy is that?
It's just there are good things happening.
But I think that with your role too, because that's your job, I think that you should be doing a lot of that defining. Like, there's a lot of people, they're very smart people, they just have no idea, like, the political interwork, because they haven't taken American government since 11th grade. Just say, guys, here's the goal. The goal is to hash it out in committee. The minority has a voice. We get that bill forward. We meet in a conference. We haven't done it yet. And I wonder, too, because I know you stayed so late to do the big, beautiful bill, but did anyone consider working through August? I know you guys can't do this and stay away from your families. Everyone's got vacation. But I knew that Chuck Schumer couldn't possibly keep his job if he didn't refuse to do your CR after the blowback he got in March.
Yeah.
So that was happening unless this was done. Did you guys discuss that at all, staying in August?
Oh, there was definitely discussion. And the issue, though, and it happens every time you run into this impasse and you're getting to the end of July, the issue is the calendar is set Like in the next 2-3 weeks, we will all get a calendar that Steve Scalise, the majority leader, and before that it would have been Steny Hoyer. They will publish a calendar for the next year. And the closer you get to that August date, the harder it's going to be for you to change that because people are setting. But reality, and this is just one man's opinion, not the whip's opinion, because this is as a member, you should change that. We should do something about the August recess. It's in the wrong place. And by the way, you should also think about changing the September 30th funding deadline. Put it on a regular year schedule, like most businesses are.
I did not know that we weren't shutting down the government until 1978. Do you see a way the Congress can function without giving either side that shutdown option? Can you put that into language? Because it really hurts people that have no business being hurt. Like for example, the airline industry, like for example, TSA, air traffic controllers, 1.4 million federal workers, and your staff. Is it possible, or you don't think that's ever going to happen?
Well, first off, I'm going to put it in these terms. I've been saying this for a couple of weeks because I get asked, who won the shutdown? Nobody wins shutdowns. Yeah. And Democrats who did this time should have read the book because Republicans wrote the darn book on shutdowns. You cannot leverage your policy agenda from the minority by shutting down the federal government. It never works because of what you just said. You are harming everybody that has there's no reason to harm 42 million low-income Americans who rely on SNAP. Yeah. There's no reason to shut down the airspace because our air traffic controllers aren't getting paid, and TSA and our Capitol Police, et cetera. But I'm a little different. I believe we're going to have to grow up again. You've already said you got a lot of people who are very smart people, but they haven't studied civics, American civics, or how it works since the 11th grade. We've got a lot of people coming into Congress that are going to have to learn very quickly, and the American public's going to have to hold them accountable, how the art of constitutional governance is supposed to work. Yeah. This is what has been lost over the last 30 years as we have gone farther and farther apart. And you do an omnibus,
you just fund it. We don't know what's in it.
It's a joke.
And then there's Christmas.
Yeah.
And we go, what's in this? And Trump said the first time, what the hell is going on here, basically? I'm new to this. I'll never sign this again. Yeah. So you're trying never to give him another omnibus, and I think that's great. I want you to hear what AOC said, that she finds that Republicans are saying to her. Cut 28. I'm sorry, cut 20.
I fully welcome Trump voters into our coalition. And I know that sounds crazy to some people, but just hear me out. I cannot tell you. It just happened to me like 2 weeks ago. I can't tell you how many times someone has pulled me aside and said either I was once a big Trump voter and a Trump supporter and I watched Fox News every day, but then I started to kind of expand my world and where I got information. And now I've learned and now I've changed and I'm with you and I learn from you.
So that's what she's experienced on a regular basis. She wanted to say that MAGA people wanted to try socialism. So the chances of these people really sincere, number one, that they exist, or number two, that they're saying that. I could see MAGA people saying, I like this about Trump, I don't like that about Trump. I could see that. But I never thought AOC was an option. What about you, Tom Emmer?
Ms. Ocasio-Cortez is smoking crack because she's not telling you. That is not happening. I'm sorry. She lives in a fairy tale world that, money grows on trees and, she and Bernie Sanders et al. And now this Marxist communist, I wouldn't.
Mamdani?
Yeah, this guy's crazy. These guys are not living in reality. There is a reason why 77 million Americans voted for Donald Trump. Do they all love our president's pugnacious behavior? No. But they recognize the ideas we're talking about, which is individual freedom, economic liberty, safety and security, a country that's a country because you got a secure border and getting the worst of the worst, the murderers, the human traffickers, those that have committed sexual assault, getting them the heck out of our country, Brian. That's what Americans are excited about. And Ms. Ocasio-Cortez is probably like all these other delusional Dems, socialist, communist, whatever, that think that the Tuesday night a week ago or whenever the elections were in Virginia and New York City and in New Jersey, they somehow are trying to spin that as a big win for themselves when, in fact, they won where they were supposed to win. And Jack Ciattarelli, he had gubernatorial turnout. Trump's not on the ballot, and he got 100,000 more votes than he got with Trump on the ballot or the last time he ran.
But do you also agree that affordability is a message that you want to take away from that?
I would love to have affordability be the message, because that's where it's going to work.
That with affordability on mortgages and other things.
Yes.
I don't know what legislation would do, but we just got to find a way to unfreeze the market while we wait for rates to come down. If Tom Emmer has a 3.5% mortgage and you want to get a bigger house, it doesn't make financial sense for you to go to a 6% mortgage and make that move. So no one's making that move. Therefore, we don't have the starter homes available to the next generation. This is the economic theory we're hearing.
Yeah, well, the affordability is going to be the issue. I love the fact that Donald Trump thinks outside of the box. I mean, talking about a 50-year mortgage. Why not?
Right.
I mean, there have to be creative solutions.
Get in the game.
And by the way, the Fed has got to wake up soon, because the current Fed chair has been slow to act all through this thing.
And now he's indicating he's not going to cut. And that's why the market's taking a hit.
It's petty. It's petty. And I know that the president has looked at this and been very vocal about it. It'll change by the spring. And guess what, Brian? We passed that bill with the largest middle-class tax cut in the history of this country, largest cut in spending in the history of this country, and permanent tax policy that told the money that was sitting on the sidelines last July, you now know how you're going to be treated, started in January of 26.
Because we don't know what the big, beautiful bill does yet, because it's not there. It's passed, but now it's not going to be
implemented. But it's coming.
Your governor is a piece of work, Tim Walz. Listen to what he said yesterday, cut 23.
Because I'd spent some time in China. I taught in China. You might have heard that last fall. God forbid your vice president would know China and could speak a little Chinese. You know, that would be a horrible thing to have happen now, to actually understand China. But Gwen always joked and said, Tim, you did your Peace Corps time in China. I'm doing mine in Nebraska. Let's move back to Minnesota. And so she moved us to Mankato, Minnesota, where her family's from. And we started teaching school there.
Why is he so comfortable in China?
Because Mao Zedong and Xi, their policies, the Chinese Communist Party, agree with Tim Walz. Frankly, I wish he would have stayed living there. It would have fit him much better. He is an embarrassment.
How does he keep getting reelected?
Well, if you want me to go into the mechanics, the problem is 87 counties in Minnesota. His last reelect, he got 52% of the vote. He only won 13 counties, the 13 metro. The 74 that he lost, which includes his former congressional district, Brian, he got 37% of the vote. He is not a well-liked man. In the 13-county metro, I would argue it has a lot to do with some discrepancies when we go through our campaign process. But more importantly, it's the corrupt media that never holds this man accountable. For $2 billion in fraud under his administration, I mean, this is insane. If you see how it's mismanaged, he took a $18 billion surplus and in a span of a year has put us on, or 2 years, has put us on a trajectory for a $5 to $6 billion shortfall.
Tomi Lahren knows it now. Tomi, do you think it's surprise to a degree, Senator Fetterman, that he's getting this type of pushback on the left?
Not at all, because they will eat their own. That's the new era of the Democrat Party. It used to be they would all fall in line. Yeah. That was under Nancy. Nancy kept everybody in line. Back in the days of AOC and the formation of the squad, Nancy was able to get all of those women and all of those men, all of they, them. She was able to whip them into shape, and they all fell in line. But now it's just no man's land. It's the Lord of the Flies over in the Democrat Party. So if they see somebody that's a little bit more moderate, by the way, moderates actually win elections for Democrats, not the far left. They will go after you. They will shame you, berate you, bully you. That's what they do, of course, to Fetterman. And it's not going to end anytime soon.
I want you to hear a little bit more. Here's Fetterman and Couric talking about Charlie Kirk, cut 26.
I just chose not to take the opportunity to argue his views after children lost his father in the most violent public way. We have to turn the temperature down. Extreme rhetoric makes it easier for extreme reactions or to justify them.
I think some people might say Charlie Kirk's rhetoric was extreme. I think that's the conversation that happened. People condemned political violence, but they also felt a great deal of discomfort with his language, suggesting that these kinds of words lead to violence. I don't know. I'm just kind of sharing my observations as I saw the conversations unfold.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we agree that we probably didn't agree with much of what he said. And I think I'm sure we both agree that you shouldn't shoot people, and you shouldn't execute them in public. And I think that's two things must be true. That free speech, I'm an absolute free speech guy, and you have the right to say these things, and you definitely also have the right not to get shot by sharing your views.
So he's trying to put her in place. What's she talking about? Can you make sense of her point of view?
Well, it's clearly Trump derangement syndrome, and that's not just for Donald Trump, by the way. That's just anybody associated with America First, the MAGA movement, doesn't matter. But what was she trying to get at there with those questions? That's what I'm really trying to figure out. Are you trying to say, well, it's awful that he got assassinated, but look at all the things that he said?
Yeah.
That's what really, that's not, we don't have to do a lot of digging to figure out that that's exactly the point that she was trying to make. That, if you say things that make people feel uncomfortable, then, maybe your assassination isn't as tragic. That's really, if she was being honest, she would have just said it like that. And I love when she say, that's what many people are observing. No, that's what you're observing. Just say it. Just say, yeah. I don't like him, so I don't really care that he was assassinated and that a woman has lost her husband and 2 children have lost their father and an entire movement has lost one of their leading voices. Just say that. I'd have more respect for her. Katie Couric used to be a respected journalist, right? Like many people that have gone down this route. And now she's a joke and she's a farce. And honestly, with this interview, I feel like she's just maybe not that great of a person.
Right. Well, I mean, one thing is pretty clear. She has everything you just said. The other thing is she was reading those questions. I'm thinking to myself, you can't come up with questions off the cuff on John Fetterman. You're pretty much outraged by Charlie Kirk. So my feeling is too, and tell me if you agree with this, is that she's got an algorithm that goes way left. And they're probably one of these people, I don't got TikTok, but one of these people that just only getting what they think is inflammatory statements out of context from Charlie Kirk. And she's like, oh, did you see this? Did you see this? Did you see this? And I'm wondering, because they skew popular opinion, that's one of the main reasons I want TikTok out of here and any foreign entity out of here when it comes to a news service. They can skew public opinion by what you see. And being that they already label her a left-wing journalist, is she only getting the stuff that she feels as though that Charlie Kirk, if taken out of context, would be inflammatory? Does she not know what a Charlie Kirk speech is actually like?
I'm sure not. I don't think she's probably gone in and done her own research
just listen
on
to
that.
one speech.
But what I find so maddening about all of this is that they often deem Charlie Kirk, President Trump, people like you, people like me, we're always controversial. The things that we say are always inflammatory. Meanwhile, on the other side, they just elected Jay Jones in Virginia, right? They believe there are 72 genders, men can be women, and white men should take the place of even black women in their own locker rooms and spaces. We saw that even in California.
Yep.
But we're controversial at extreme. We're inflammatory.
Yeah.
That's what I don't even care to buy into that narrative. Even if you want to pick apart Charlie Kirk and you want to take him out of context and you want to take bits and pieces, even those bits and pieces, to me, are not as egregious of the full statements that we're hearing from Democrats that they're not apologizing for, that we don't have to take out of context because they're quite proud of them. Mm-hmm. Look at Virginia. There is no floor. The Democrat Party has no floor. I don't want to hear about inflammatory on the right anymore.
Right. When those text messages are exposed, they know who this Republican's family is. I want to shoot them all, basically, and kill the kids. And this guy still won. Have you thought about how he won? Like, can you make sense of how Jay Jones won?
Well, I think we heard it earlier in the year from some of the folks on the Democrat base. I think it was an Axios article that said they want blood. They want resistance to President Trump. They want their Democrat leaders to be willing to put their lives on the line to fight President Trump. So there's really not a big jump from that to let's elect the guy that was talking about peeing on someone's grave. So I don't think there's a big jump. That's where they are.
It's pretty crazy. But, Virginia had but plus this guy, the one they had in power, was doing a great job. Jason was doing great. So I want to talk about what J.D. Vance gave a great interview with Sean Hannity yesterday. One time he just opened up and he said about 2028, he's going to sit down and he's going to talk to President Trump about 2028 before they do anything. Right now, he's going to spend the next year trying to get to the midterm elections and make sure they don't fail. And indicating that Rubio is a friend and his best friend on the cabinet. My thing is there's no way Rubio's running if J.D. Vance is running. I don't want to play a side. I just want to get your take. That's a summary of it. Your thoughts about J.D. Vance's approach to running, and is he going to be essentially looked at as an incumbent and very few, except for fringe, running against him?
I think it's his if he wants it. I would like to see Rubio, but I think that that's going to end up having to be a joint ticket, and I'm not mad at that. I think it's a great one. I think that we need to figure out what's going to happen in these midterms. By the way, I think they should run as incumbents if we still have the MAGA movement strong. But what we saw a couple weeks ago is that if Trump's not on the ballot, Republicans don't show up. So the Republican Party is going to figure out how to remedy that. Is that with J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, an extension of President Trump and MAGA? Perhaps. Let's see what midterms look like next year, though. Can Republicans actually get out when you don't have President Trump on that stage and on that ballot?
And could you see Governor DeSantis running? Can you see Kristi Noem running? Can you see Governor Youngkin running if J.D. Vance is in?
I think that Ron DeSantis is probably so...
Brian Kemp.
Yeah, probably so scarred from what happened to him in the primary and the way MAGA really turned on him. I think he's the most effective governor in the country, and he has been for quite some time. By the way, I would like to see him run, but I don't think he's going to do that to himself again because of what the conservative movement did to him when he dared to challenge President Trump. Now, I think President Trump and Ron DeSantis have a good relationship. We know President Trump forgives people.
He does.
And look at J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio being two great examples of that.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah. Exactly. I don't think you're going to see a Brian Kemp. I don't think we're ever going to go back the way of the McCains and the Romneys. I think it's going to be much more in the realm of the Rubio, the Vance.
And I think the one thing J.D. Vance is so smart at two things. Number one, don't get in front of the president even when he's in his last 2 years. He's not going to like that. And number two is I'm going to have him informed every step of the way. Because you don't want to get out in front. You do an interview and you say, well, maybe I wouldn't have hit the Iranian nuclear sites. Mm-hmm. That type of thing will set... The president will do an interview the next day. He goes, very disappointed to hear that J.D. Vance said, I could see this scenario, and I think J.D. is too smart for that. Tomi, who do you have coming up this weekend?
We've got a lot coming up. We got 6 hours of content. Plus, I'm joining you on Sunday night.
Yes.
So for a media,
and
a media segment that I'm very excited about. So and
10
I'm
a.m., 10
yeah,
p.m.
10 p.m. Yes.